Hello there again, art friends. This is Roberta at Dottati Art. I'm a mixed media artist in the San Francisco Bay Area. Today, because it's relatively quiet in our office, I thought I would do a quick tour of my small studio space, which is really just one of our smaller office spaces in our larger video production studio space. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how I make that smaller space work for me, how I organize it and created storage so that I could have all of the stuff I needed organized and in places that I can find them. I know with smaller spaces, it's really challenging to get them organized and find storage space because we as artists like to collect a lot of things and have a lot of supplies. I tried to organize this the best I could to make it work for me. And then I will also give you a quick peek into my larger space that I use for my larger paintings. It's basically a section of our back warehouse space that I have a wall that I've created a way to hang up some larger canvases that I can work on. And I have a series of 4 that I'm working on right now that are 36 by 48, so they're fairly good sized canvases. But before we take that quick tour, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think that having my studio here as opposed to in my house has really been a benefit for me and my art business. And probably one of the advantages that most artists I know who like to have a separate studio away from their house find useful. The first big reason is that it helps me stay focused when I'm here because I don't have the distractions of other things that need to happen at home. Chores, dishes, laundry, the dog walk, all of those things are they're kind of nagging at you. Well, you got to do those today too. And while it was not too difficult to kind of juggle all those things and, do them when I was at home, it kept switching my focus. Like I would get started on something and then something else would happen, or I'd get up to get a drink and then it's like I realized the dishes needed to be put in the dishwasher. There's so many things that were just there to distract that it was hard to stay focused for longer periods of times and actually feel like I was making progress. So I decided to move out and create a space here in my office. Even though it's a small space, it really works for me because I think I've organized it well for my needs, and I'm going to share that with you in a second. But I think having this space here really allowed me to think about this as an art business, meaning I would come into it with the same attitude and perspective as if I was getting up and going to work every day. I had things I needed to get done. There was tasks that needed to be finished just on the main part of the art business itself. A lot of administrative tasks have to happen. People don't realize, when they say they want to have an art business and they want to be an artist full time, what that means as far as like all of the other stuff that comes with it, as far as, taxes and legal documents and, how you, set yourself up as a business and, keeping that all straight and separate bank accounts and managing all that. And it's a lot of work. I mean, it is a business. So having this in a separate space where I can keep those things separate and be able to focus and work on those in a dedicated space for me has been super helpful. It also allows me, when I'm actually working on projects, to stay focused. I can just kind of close the door and stay focused on what I'm doing without thinking about the chores and the dishes and all those things because they're not here. Like I can't do them anyway. My purpose is to be here and be focused on what I need to do in my studio today. The other advantage or benefit I've found, because I'm in obviously a commercial space where we do have people that come in for video production, and I also hold classes and other art workshops here, and people sometimes utilize the space for small corporate events and things like that. I get exposure to people that are interested in art or maybe interested in taking a class. So, either in talking to them, or they kind of see my studio, or they see some art that I have hanging on the wall, in the lobby, and they ask about it. And it's a great opportunity for me to build a connection with them, create a relationship where, I get to know them personally and kind of what they like, and they also get to know me as an artist, who I am, what I like to do. And they can see, because I have a studio here, that, this is something that is not just a hobby for me. Having an art business is a job. It's like work. I take it seriously and want to make it thrive and grow. And being able to have them come into my studio where I can have a one-on-one, or I can have, a more intimate conversation about art, or who, even who they are, getting to know them as a person, makes it much easier for me to build, my client lists and my patrons, and just get a pulse on what's going on out there in the art community, or even the public's perception of my art, things they like, things they don't like. All of those things help me make decisions about what I want to do as an artist and how I want to move my business forward. Okay, so let's do the quick tour, and I will walk through my small studio space here and talk a little bit about kind of each of the stations, is what I call them, that I have set up for different types of work that I do. And then finally, we'll do just a quick peek into my back warehouse space, where I do my large 36 by 48 canvas paintings that are in progress right now. So this is my small office inside of our video studio company building. It's basically 18 by 12 by 13, somewhere in that size. So it's an okay size, but it's still fairly small. So off to the side here, I have my computer workstation where I can do Photoshop work and get online and do those sorts of things. I hung a grid on the wall in this corner just to be able to display a couple of pieces of artwork. But the grids work really great because it gives me a chance to swap out artwork without having to worry about holes in the wall or what size things are, or having to replace stuff that's exactly the same size, because I can really hang anything on there with the hangers, anything I want. And then I have a cork board that I've covered with a really thin piece of kind of plastic vinyl that I use to hang work in progress, experiments, things I've been working on that may need to dry, or stuff that I've done that I'm not sure whether I'm going to keep or not. So I just put it up there to live with for a couple of days. And then I have all this great storage underneath, some large storage in the corner here for a lot of my supplies, such as watercolor paper, smaller canvases, and those sorts of things. And then I have on this side of my large table my work area for doing gouache and watercolor. I have a nice roller bin underneath with all of my acrylic inks on it. And you'll see here I have an extra light, studio light, that I brought in from the studio, because I only have this one window in the corner. I don't get a lot of nice daylight light, although the fluorescent lights in here are adjusted for daylight. But this extra light just gives me extra brightness if I want to work on something. I also use it when I'm filming to get a little bit of extra light. And then this station in the front has got a cutting mat and a small little cutter. I use this to do most of my finishing work with my smaller paintings, getting them framed and getting the mats in and those sorts of things. And then on the other side, the other wall, I also have another storage cube. And again, these are just IKEA, storage cubes that you can throw the drawers and doors in, as well as get the little cubby boxes that fit in there. So it keeps my studio fairly neat, but I keep all of my books and some other supplies in a lot of those tubes that I use frequently. And then on this side of my big workstation is where I do a little bit more of my messy work. So collage work, my acrylic paintings, anything that's got a little bit of a more of a messy component to it from, you know, just being watercolor or gouache. Now the nice thing about these desks, and these are the Husky workbench desks that I got, I believe just at Home Depot, or you can get them online, other places. And they're all standing height desks because I like to stand when I'm doing artwork. So it's nice to have desks that I can raise and lower, and you'll see there's a handle here so I can adjust them as needed. So basically this is 3 of the adjustable desks together. So there's 2 back to back here, and then there's 1 that I stuck on the end this way. So they make a big surface, which is great because sometimes when I'm doing something large, I'll kind of clear it off and then I've got a really nice big table. And then I got some of these nice fatigue mats that I use to put underneath there. And then I have another cart here where I have all of my painting supplies as far as the paint goes, little containers for all the brushes. And then in this very back table, which is not adjustable, but it is a standing height table, I have all of my pastels. So this is my pastel station where I have a nice easel to put it up on, and then I've got all of my colors and everything here, which is super easy access. So that's it. It's a fairly small studio, but I've organized it in a way that I have workstations and things are handy. So when I need stuff, I've got what I need. And then I also have some wall space up here where I have some of my artwork that I'm going to keep on the wall that just stays there permanently. So that's really my small studio. It's a little bit compact, and there isn't like a ton of room around it, but it's super functional because I've organized it in a way that allows me to have separate workstations for things, but still gives me the space I need. Now this is great only for smaller art. For my larger art, I actually have some space in our back warehouse, and I'll show you that next. So fortunately, we also have a nice back warehouse space that we use for storage and keeping a lot of the things that we need for our video production, lights and extra props and those sorts of things. So I basically put 2 Unistrut sections up on the wall. That's the metal things behind there that I can hang paintings on. So this is where I actually do my larger paintings. And the wall's probably, I don't know, 20, maybe 20 feet wide. So these are 36 by 48 paintings. So these are in process. And then I have, it's a little messy because I haven't cleaned this, my space over here where I keep all my paints and brushes for the stuff I'm working on back here. So this is a nice larger space. Well, I hope you enjoyed that quick tour of my space. For those of you who have small studio spaces, I would love to hear any tips or tricks that you use to make the spaces work for you. Just leave them in the comments below. Thanks.